All right, good afternoon, everyone. How are you all doing? I'm going to call to order the Hamilton County Solid Waste Policy Committee. This is Wednesday, February 19th, 2025. It's one of our regular quarterly meetings. Before we get started with the agenda, we are going to do our typical round robin so that everybody knows who's in the room because we've got some new faces today. So I will start. I'm Commissioner Denise Driehaus. We'll head this way real quick.
Okay, Michelle Waltz with Hamilton County Resource.
Back to you.
Brad Johnson, Director of Hamilton County Environmental Services.
And that's you.
Greg Custerman, Hamilton County Public Health.
Matt Willard, trustee representative, Corrigan Township trustee.
Colleen McSwigan, Coordinator for Sustainability Central and the public member.
Tyler Garrison with the Zoo, Sustainability Department Manager and Generator.
I'm Sue Magnus with the City of Cincinnati.
Jack Mannion, Hamilton County Resource.
I am Tony Stawak, Hamilton County Resource.
Elise Burlett, Hamilton County Resource. Harry Krumpinager, Hamilton County Resource.
Demetri Goodbye, Hamilton County Prosecutor's Office.
Tom Turchiotto, Rumpke Waste and Recycling.
Jeff Snyder, Senior Vice President of Recycling and Sustainability at Rumpke.
I'm Molly Yeager, the Communications Manager at Rumpke. Sharon Warren, Hamilton County Resource.
Ashley Dove, Hamilton County Environmental Services.
Kevin Ty with Commissioner Driehaus's office.
All right, there we go. And we've got lots of people online. So thank you all for attending. And thank you for your interest in the work that we do. I'm going to make a motion that we approve of the minutes of the previous session.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion? Everybody
I'll abstain.
It wasn't, you weren't there. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna abstain too because I missed that.
Okay. Any conversation about it? In that case, I'm gonna ask for a motion to approve. Or let's take the roll, shall we? Yeah. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Two. Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the public comment. Are there any public
Yes,
comments?
we have 3 online.
All right, I'm gonna leave it to you to call on them.
Okay, Bruce Burno.
Good afternoon, just a quick comment. I know you're going to cover the Rumpke recycling and the Hefty Orange Bag program, but I want to recommend that you take whatever steps you can to advertise and promote that program more broadly. I think it's a great program. I can't remember how I personally found out about it, but I think I just stumbled upon it. So again, I think it could warrant some broader publication, advertising, marketing, whatever. I'm not sure if that's Rumpke's responsibility or Hefty's responsibilities, but I'd like to see it more broadly marketed. Secondly, just on the public comments in general, maybe it'd be helpful if we could have public comments at the end of the meeting in case the public has any questions or comments, because last month I tried to make a comment during one of the presentations and got kind of cut off. And you know, the limit public comments at the beginning of the meeting excludes us from making any comment that may come up during the meeting. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your comments.
And next we have Tim Mara.
Thank you. I'm with the Solid Waste Caucus, which has approved my comments. First, we are glad to see the district's moving forward on the organic collection idea we presented 2 or 3 years ago, the 3-bin system. But we understand that you will be considering potential sites for up to 3 organics recycling facilities. We urge you to not select the far western area of Hamilton County for such a facility. The area is already facing the prospect of a reactivated and expanded Bond Road landfill. The area does not need yet another facility with the potential to create or worsen existing problems. According to US EPA's EJ Environmental Justice Screen tool, the area is already burdened by releases of toxic air, diesel particulate matter 2.5, and ozone. So much so that some census tracts in the area are in the 95 to 100 percentile when compared with the national data. No wonder life expectancy is low and coronary heart disease and cancer rates are very high in this same area. Western Hamilton County has endured many environmental insults over the years, including the lasting legacy of pollution from the former Gulf refinery in Hooven, unlined ash pits, several primitive landfills in the area, and a recent leak of styrene from a train and so on. Just how much do the people of Western Hamilton County have to endure? Again, the area does not need another unwanted facility. It already has plenty of problems on its plate. For once, put the facility somewhere else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Looks like last we have Carrie Davis.
Hello, everyone. A couple things. One, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Number one, I want to formally inform you that Rumpke violated the rule that was passed in December 23, I think, which said that it must serve notice upon the Solid Waste Committee and the administrator, environmental director, upon requesting a major modification in the operation of their landfill. They were required to submit that to you all for approval and to go through the new rule process whenever they make a major modification. And the concerning part is number two. Number one, they failed to do that, and I expect the commissioner to take enforcement action against Rumpke for failing to follow the procedure. Number two, the issue at hand that they requested was a major modification in the leachate storage at the site, and we had a near catastrophe that would have been huge over the weekend, and where the tankers that are supposed to only be operating during emergency situations where human health and the environment are at risk, they could not get their trucks up that steep road that everyone has informed you is not a safe road to be doing this kind of business on. And the truck was stuck. And we don't know except to ask Rumpke. The health department was not there. They did not answer their phone line for emergency possible spill. There was no response at all, if any, until Tuesday. I know the Ohio EPA issued an advisory to the water processing plant down the road to either stop the intake of water or to increase the monitoring of the water, because they did not know, because nobody from the health department, nobody from Ohio, nobody from the county went out to inspect to see if, while that truck was unable to get up and drain off the leachate, if it overflowed. So we do not know now, and we will never know if, I guess it's okay. You're nodding, it's okay. Gentlemen, Ms. Driehaus. But anyway, we have heard no reports back on this. I can see you guys nodding and winking at each other. But the bottom line is there was no investigation whatsoever, no emergency response to determine if the leachate ponds overflowed and went down that hill and into the Whitewater River. And so I want to know why you are allowing them to operate under emergency provisions without giving proper notice, and why nobody responded to what may have been a disastrous environmental situation.
Your time has expired, Karen. Thank you for your
Okay,
comments.
you got my legal notice. Thank you.
Yes, very good. Yes, I was leaning over to the health commissioner to ask him if he was prepared to respond to your comment. So that's what you caught on camera there. And he said he was. So I'm going to ask the.
Well, if he's going to tell,
Carrie,
I'd like
your
to
time is
know.
up. Thank you for your
His
comments.
response would
It is now
include
the
when they went
response
out
of the
there.
Public Health Commissioner. He will give us some information related to something that you just brought to our attention. So I appreciate your comments, and we're going to turn it over to the Health Commissioner.
So over the weekend, we did receive a call on the DPIC, which is our poison control line. Our staff didn't get that call until today. We went out, and what we found is that there was no leak. The tanker truck does drain leachate containers on the site at Rumpke. There are ponds, they're sediment ponds, they're not leachate. Some of the misinformation on social media indicated that the ponds have leachate. They do not. It's a sediment pond. Before you're allowed to discharge to creeks, any kind of runoff, they allow the sediment to settle out. But yeah, there were no violations. I believe Rumpke actually responded on social media about the incident. They are allowed to operate tanker trucks. Apparently in this case, the tanker truck, because the roads became slippery due to snow, They safely stopped in the middle of the road, waited for the roads to get corrected, and then went about their business.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate the update. All right, we're gonna move on to the resource.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
can I ask a question?
Of course.
Okay, so I guess the holding things that we're talking about, it's my understanding there's some type of alarm that gets tripped on that when it gets to a certain level, right? Is that?
So I personally have never inspected them, but yes, very typically, any kind of a storage tank to hold chemicals or leachate would have an alarm when they hit capacity. In the case of Rumpke, they typically at the main landfill, I have some familiarity, when those tanks fill, they are allowed to request an exemption from OEPA to allow the landfill to also become a storage facility for additional leachate. You may recall a decade ago, we had sewer odor issues. And during that time, we ordered through MSD Rumpke to quit discharging to the sewers to alleviate some of the odor issues. As a result, the landfill actually had to take on additional water inside of the liner. That was an approved alteration. In this case, we could do that at Bond Hill as well, but we've never had to. They have tanks on site for leachate.
And I don't know the exact number, but I don't think they wait till capacity for the alarms to.
I would think not. Typically, that's unusual. I would not think that's what they're doing. Typically, though, you will see increased leachate during periods of wetness, so.
Like 1.9 inches of rain.
So when we get water, landfills take on some of that water. The caps that are in place aren't perfect. Even the temporary caps allow some water, so you do see increases. But landfills are designed to manage that, and that's what happened in this instance.
And this is my last question,
You're
and
fine.
maybe for our new legal counsel, hazardous waste is defined, right, in the ORC. Does leachate fill that, the definition of hazard? I mean, it's, you don't wanna drink it, but I think it's, when it comes in, it gets diluted so much by the water. Does that meet the standard of a hazardous waste?
I do not believe that this would be classified as a hazardous waste, but I would prefer that a knowledgeable staff member answer that question. Which probably is somebody on my team that's not here.
Okay,
So
okay.
maybe we can follow up then.
It's just such an emotional
Yeah.
kind of word to
Yeah.
use. I think of Love Canal and stuff like that. Well, I'm really old, so that's
I
what I
was gonna
think.
say, you're strong, right?
Yeah.
So, well, Greg, if you could get an answer to the question, are there any other questions?
And
Yeah,
I was, so what was actually in the tanker?
It's leachate coming
Okay, so
from
it
the
was coming
tanks,
from- okay.
and they take it to MSD because there's not sewer service out there at that
Gotcha.
location.
Okay.
The main landfill does the same thing, the one in Colerain Township, and that is a function of the issue with the sewage.
Okay.
I believe over time, 10 years ago is when that happened, but over time, some of the less odorous waste does still make it into the sewer. And they pay for that just like any other commercial customer does.
any other questions?
One more point, the tanks, they are getting emptied into spots designated by MSD, so they're not getting emptied into creeks or rivers or anything. MSD has spots where they allow for Rumpke and other industrial customers to dump their waste. And they determine where those locations are based on odor. So sometimes if you dump it in a crowded location, it causes odor issues, or sometimes if you dump it too close to the facility, to MSD, it creates treatment issues because leachate and industrial waste have higher concentrations of all of these chemicals.
Yeah.
And so MSD works with their industrial partners like Rumpke to make sure that they're managing those loads as they come in.
Okay.
And again, the last question, I just want to go back to this hazardous material kind of nomenclature. Is there a landfill in Ohio that takes hazardous? And I don't think Rumpke takes any.
No,
So I
I don't
know
think, yeah.
when I was at Mount St. Joe doing the chemical like disposals and things like that, we had to send ours to, there was one in Michigan that ours went to and one in Wisconsin, I believe. So-
Okay. All right. That's it. Thank you.
So in response though to the one question that you could not answer, if you would maybe provide that answer to Michelle and then she can send it out to the entire committee for the benefit of the group, okay?
Thank
All right, thank you, thanks, Matt. All right, revenue updates and analysis, this is Michelle.
Yes, if you look in attachment B, we have a comparison of the full year of 2024 with the full year of 2023. And just quickly going over, it's following the same trend it has been. We had about a 4% increase in district tonnage. This is about 42,000 tons. We had about a 29,000 ton decrease in out of district tonnage, which is about 2.2%. We also had about about a 3,000 ton decrease in out-of-state tonnage, which is about a 3% decrease. So overall, there was about a 9,000 ton increase in tonnage, which is pretty much flatline. It's like 0.4%. It's a very small amount. And then the same with revenue. It was about a 0.5% in decrease in revenue over 2023. So that's about $19,000.
Okay, thank you. We've got policy items for discussion, the public member representative position. What's our status on this?
Yes, so that is Ms. McSwain's position that will be up at the May meeting. And so we will need to advertise for that position and have interviews. So if two policy committee members would volunteer to be on that interview committee. Yeah, that's what we need is an interview committee.
Anyone?
I'll volunteer.
Sue is volunteering. I need one more.
I'll volunteer.
There we go. Thank you. So we will post the position. Are you going?
I'm gonna rerun.
Very good. Okay, and so we'll take that up at our next meeting. Okay, thank you. Very good. Ohio HB 257, this is the virtual meeting still.
Yes.
Yes.
So if you didn't know, the Ohio State Legislature passed a House bill to allow for virtual meetings for some public bodies, not all. There's some question of whether you have elected officials on your committee, whether you can be virtual or not. We had a Ohio Solid Waste Districts meeting and there was some debate on it, and they just want to make sure. This is really important for some solid waste districts who have 4 or 5 counties together and they're trying to get 20+ people in a room together. They only meet once a year. It's not quite as important for Hamilton County, but it is something to look out for. So there are several solid waste districts who are asking for an attorney general's opinion on this, of whether this applies for solid waste districts or not. So I would just recommend we wait to hear what the attorney general says for that. If you want, I can submit a request on behalf of Hamilton County, but I think we'll probably just get the same thing from the other counties. So it's up to you if you want me to submit a separate request.
The idea being if you've got elected officials, you might not be able to.
Right, because I think that was, they didn't want county commissioner boards or trustee boards meeting
with that.
and they're official, but but they just want to make sure that it's okay if you have elected officials on your board, it's not what they were elected for, that you're still allowed to meet virtually.
Yeah, okay. Always mucking up the works here.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll wait for, I don't know about you, I don't think we need to offer another request, but rather wait for the opinion. To come out and see how we do. Okay, very good, thank you for the update. We've got some informational items. So we'll go to item A. This is the Rumpke recycling. It was referenced earlier, actually, the 2024 impact and the Hefty Renew program update. So I don't know who's presenting for Rumpke this afternoon. Please come forward.
So, good afternoon. As I mentioned before, I'm Molly Yeager, I'm the communications manager with Rumpke, and I have Jeff Snyder, who's our vice president of sustainability and everything. We've changed titles here recently, so I don't know how to memorize. But today, I know at the last November meeting, we were asked to come in and give an update on the Hefty Renew program, which we're happy to do so. But while we have the floor, we also want to provide an update on all the other recyclable material that we're accepting at our plants. So as you all are aware, we are a total waste solutions provider. We're not just landfills, as we previously discussed, we're also recycling facilities. We actually have 16 landfills throughout Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, as well as Illinois, and we now have 16 recycling facilities also throughout that 5-state service footprint that we offer. Something that Rumpke is very heavily investing in is recycling. Last year, we spent more than $100 million in updating recycling. That's not just our new fancy Columbus facility. We've actually made several $1 million worth of upgrades in our Cincinnati recycling facility, and Jeff's going to talk about more upgrades that are coming to that facility as well. That recycling facility that we have in Cincinnati is nothing to sneeze at. It is a shining star amongst the recycling industry. It was built in 2013. It had the best available technology put into it at that time, and we continue to upgrade it to make sure it has the best available technology. in that. It is currently ranked the 4th largest recycling facility in North America. So I want people to understand that what we have in our own backyards here is a sight to be seen. We do tours of this facility regularly. I know we have many students that come in to that facility. I know some Matt's students that come into that facility. It's a great educational tool. So I want to make sure people understand how cool that is. And that was a $32 million investment that we made into Hamilton County. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff so he can kind of talk a little bit more about this amazing facility and the work that's being done in it.
Thanks, Molly. I didn't want to turn my back to you folks. I apologize for that. Listen, there's some exciting stuff going on in recycling, and specifically in the last 5 years, when you just think about the state of recycling. If you want to go to the next slide, if whoever has that there, thank you. So as Molly said, we invested $32 million in 2013. So our facility is coming up on, 12, 13 years old now. And, some of the features that we've added over the last few years has been artificial intelligence. So we're able to go deeper into the waste stream using AI. And we use AI to identify plastics and packaging, but we also use AI to give us data. So we know exactly what's coming through our MRF. And the cool thing is that we have X-ray. We're the only MRF, the Cincinnati MRF is the only MRF in the United States that has an X-ray in it. So we're very proud of that. It allows us to see through burden depth, and it allows us to identify the materials as it comes in because we can see it, which is super cool. And one of the nice things about our X-ray system is that it is identifying lithium ion batteries. As you know, the reason we rebuilt the plant in 2013 is because it burned to the ground. So very, very important that we continue to get the batteries out of the stream. And we're very happy with our X-ray technology, allowing us to do that. A couple other things as we think about what's the future of the Cincinnati MRF look like. We are going to be investing in the Cincinnati MRF over the next 2 years. Some of the things that are extremely important to be able to add to this facility is higher recovery rates. Added commodities. I would love to add thermoform clam shells to the recycling bin. But we'll be able to do that when we upgrade the facility. Size separation, ballistics, and some of those really cool things that are out there in the industry. So really to bring this facility kind of up. One of the reasons that it's tough to do in Cincinnati is because we take 750 tons a day. And when you have to upgrade the facility, you have to have downtime. So what do you do with that 750 tons a day? Now that we have Columbus, we're able to take that material, keep it in Ohio, take it up to Columbus, process the material there while we're upgrading the Cincinnati facility. So very excited about having that capability now. So if you want to kind of move on to the next slide, just moving forward, this is kind of some cool numbers. I love talking about this. 1.2 billion pounds of material in the state of Ohio we recycled last year. It's just unbelievable. It's the most we've ever done in 2024. And the Cincinnati MRF was over 400 million pounds of that. So if you think about that in comparison, the Cincinnati MRF processed 184,000 tons last year in 2024, and Columbus processed 172,000 tons in 2024. So again, Cincinnati still leads the way, right, when it comes to recycled material. And if you kind of move on, I kind of broke that down just a little bit. And this is just incredible. This is just what we've done. 13 million aluminum cans or pounds of aluminum cans. It takes 24 cans to make a pound. Do that math. That's a big number. Glass, our Dayton glass plant, we're very lucky to have that here in the state of Ohio to process our glass. That was 185 million pounds. There you can see steel and then some of the papers that we did as well. Corrugated kind of leads the way at 565 million pounds of corrugated that went to Ohio paper mills. So very excited about what's going on that side. Then if you go on the plastic side, it really gets in the next slide. 52 million pounds of plastic is what we did in 2024. And if you kind of look at PET, HDPE, polypropylene, those type of things, we're really excited about what's going on there. Some industrial plastics there as well as some film and those type of things that we did. And you're more than happy to use these numbers, but and the cool thing is all those plastics got recycled right here in the state of Ohio. So we're bringing them from our homes, we're sorting them, we're processing them, and then we're selling them to Ohio companies that are making new products out of it right here in Ohio, which is super cool. So we're very excited about that. Lastly, kind of moving on here, if you think about what the future looks like, the demand for post-consumer resin, we call it PCR or recycled resin, is extremely high. I heard on the 700 WLW last week, it was a Wednesday, I made a mental note of it, that the CEO of Coca-Cola says they're changing from aluminum to plastic because they can't get enough aluminum cans. Right? That's some of the tariff stuff that's going on, but listen, the demand for post-consumer resin is extremely high. Polypropylene, which is all the tubs that we are doing, they're really pushing towards FDA approval on polypropylene. So there is a huge demand for all of those cottage cheese and sour cream containers that we touch every single day. So we want as many of those as we can get. PET is extremely in high demand. That's all these water bottles that we touch every day. So we want as much of that as we can get our hands on. You know, I keep my ear to the ground when it comes to pyrolysis and chemical recycling. I keep my ear to the ground when you think about EPR, extended producer responsibility. We're not playing in those games right now. But when those things come to Ohio, we'll have to address it. Whether it's pyrolysis or whether it's EPR. EPR is holding companies and brands and folks that make packaging financially responsible to make it so it's recyclable. So that's extremely important. There are 6 states in the United States that have EPR laws. Ohio is not one of those yet. But listen, we're keeping our ear to it and we'll be a part of it if and when it happens. And then lastly, I wanted to give you an update on the Hefty Renew program. Since we started this on November of 2023, November of 2023, so it's been over almost a year and a half now. We've collected 40,000 pounds of orange bags, 20 tons, that if we didn't have this program would have been sitting in one of our landfills. We're very excited about that number. We're bringing in about 50 to 60 bags a day into the Cincinnati MRF. That's a day. And we're processing that material. We have 11, if you go to the MRF right this second, there's 11 bales of this material sitting in the MRF. Each one of those bales weighs about 850 pounds. So you kind of do that math and divide it by 1.9 pounds per bag. That's over 9,500 bags that are sitting in the MRF right this second. So we're very excited about that. The Cincinnati markets, if you think about bag sales, we're 25% of Hefty Renew's program are all the carton sales across the United States. So Cincinnati is a huge part of the Hefty Renew program. We just implemented it in Columbus as well. And that seems to be going very well. Dayton is also doing it. So we're kind of moving it across the state. All the Dayton material obviously comes, they actually keep the Dayton material in Dayton because they sort it off the line before it comes to Cincinnati. So the Cincinnati stuff all stays right here in Cincinnati. We've done over 10,000 starter kits in the Cincinnati area, and we've had 610 in zip codes that are 100% in the city, and we've had about 3.2 or about 3,200 in zip codes that were partially in the city. So again, the program seems to be gaining traction since we've been doing it over a year now. There's a lot of people that really love the program. I heard your comments online about, getting more marketing out there and getting more people to know about it. We can definitely take that to heart and do more when it comes to promoting the program. So we're excited about it. And the cool thing is that all this stuff is going back into plastic pallets, plastic lumber, durable goods. When I say durable goods, it's like park benches and those type of things. We actually have park benches at the MRF that are made out of the material. And then we're starting to move it into railroad ties, plastic railroad ties. So there's some interesting stuff going on out in the marketplace when it comes to end markets for this type of plastic. So thank you for the time and thank you for your attention.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I have 2 questions.
Yeah.
So you hit on it there at the end because we had one of the commenters talk about promoting this program.
Yes.
So have you seen since its inception an increase in usage as the promotion gets?
We have seen an increase in usage, but we think we can do better. We need to do better, I think. I think that we can handle more material. Hefty wants more material. The markets want more material. So I will take his comment to heart and see what we can make happen on the marketing side.
Hefty invested a hefty marketing budget when it first started. So if you were on the Inquirer or some other websites, you saw a retargeting ad that was following around. It's also on Facebook and YouTube. So they did more digital advertising than anything else. They did not invest in radio or television, but we could definitely look at more outreach out there.
And one last thing. So this committee, we're very interested in diverting waste from the landfill.
As am I.
Right, and so
That's my
since we-
job.
Since we've got you at the podium.
Yeah.
We do grants and we, again, we've got this organic study that we're gonna hear about,
Mhm.
all intended to divert. What do you see as the highest potential area for us to have an impact as we continue to try to divert waste?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. I think it comes down to access and trust. We still struggle in the state of Ohio and specifically in Cincinnati with multifamily housing. 8% of the folks that live in an apartment complex have access to recycling. That some of that is on the complex, some of that is on the waste and recycling industry. I think that is huge that we could do. And then constantly going out and trying to debunk the theories out there about that recycling doesn't really get recycled. I can give you a $32 million reason right here in the city that it does get recycled. Rumpke has made their largest investment in the company's history in recycling in Columbus. We're gonna do it again here in Cincinnati. So building that trust, I like to tell people where everything's going. All right, I don't hide that. If you wanna know where all the water bottles go that you put in your recycling bin, I will drive you there and show you what happens to them, right? So building that trust and then increasing the access. The more volume we can get, that lowers the cost as well. So I think those three things are the things that I'm really focused on when I think about how do we get more of it? How do we divert more out of the landfills? We only recycle 32% of the PET water bottles in the state of Ohio. Why? You know, we want out all of them. So again, how do we do that? It's participation, access, and trust.
Okay, Thank
And
you.
that's really what
I'm sorry, I do have one last question.
Yeah.
I saw, are we supposed to get the lids? I thought we were supposed to take the lids off.
No, we like the lids.
The lids
Yeah, leave the
on.
lids
It's
on.
changed.
Oh,
We're
okay.
gonna put the lid back on.
It's very confusing. All right,
Yeah.
because I saw that slide. I'm like.
Yeah, we
whoa,
like
whoa,
the
whoa,
lids
whoa,
on.
okay.
Yeah.
Lids on. All right,
Yep.
very good.
All right.
Other
Oh,
questions.
yeah,
I'm sure there are
absolutely.
other questions from the group. Anybody have
Absolutely.
any questions?
I was curious how many batteries you're pulling out. You guys-
So we're pulling out batteries, so we have it on one of our lines and we're getting about 93% recovery rate on that line through the X-ray machine. The batteries, and you can go there and like stand at that line, we're probably getting anywhere from 25 to 30 a day.
Okay.
You know, and those are gonna be like DeWalt batteries or like batteries that would be in like a lawnmower or like yard equipment. Those are the type of batteries that we're seeing.
Okay.
We're also identifying like the batteries that would come in a greeting card. We're getting that small, but we don't believe those are the ones that are causing us the issues. We really believe it's the ones that are, yeah, the bigger ones.
What do you guys do with them when you find them?
So there's a lot of stuff we have to do with them, right? So we have to segregate them by type, whether it's a car battery, whether it's a lawnmower battery, or whether it's like a drill battery. And then we have to tape the leads on every single one of them. And then we have to store them in a crate. We have to stack them nice and neatly. And then we move them into a lithium ion battery recycle. Just no components.
That's cheap.
It's, yeah, listen,
Expensive.
we don't want them. We get them, we have to deal with them. Yeah, it costs us money to do it, but listen, we gotta do what we have to do, right?
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Just want to put in my 2 cents that you can also take things to 10 different fire stations
Yes,
around the city.
yeah, so we have partnered with
Yeah,
them.
we
right?
partnered with
With,
the Hudson.
with
that
everybody.
Program, yeah.
yeah, yes, we have 10 of them, and they're properly handling them as well,
We were talking about batteries.
batteries,
Yeah,
Okay.
batteries. Yeah.
All right.
yeah. What
Any
other-
other questions from the group? No?
Okay.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
you
Thanks
bet.
so much.
Thank you.
Our next item is wasted food stops with US campaign.
Wasted Food stops with us.
Oh, there's Tony.
So Tony's gonna give us a presentation. I'll share your presentation.
Oh, I said US. didn't I?
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. It's a capital U, so I
It
got
is kind of really,
feeling patriotic today.
super supportive of it.
Very,
And there are a lot of slides, so I'll just be saying next a lot. So, hello, I'm Tony Stavak. I think I know most of you. I am the Food Waste Diversion Senior Specialist for Hamilton County Resource. Michelle asked me to give a presentation about our Wasted Food Stops With Us campaign, which is our consumer-driven campaign to educate folks in the county about how to reduce food waste. But I'm also gonna sprinkle in a few other things we're doing. And so, Michelle, if you wanna go to the next slide. My background is before this, I ran agriculture education programs. I was a 4-H educator. I So I view a lot of things from an educational perspective. And so this is just my internal model of the food system that I use when I think about things. And it actually starts at the bottom with production. And I want to start off with this because it's very important to understand where food comes from and where it's going as we're trying to identify strategies to help people reduce food waste at home. It starts with production. So food is produced on farms, it's processed in factories, it's distributed on trucks to grocery stores where it's accessed, and then it's purchased by people where it's consumed. It's recovered in home ideally. This is a perfect model where we don't have any trash and it all gets reused. So it gets recovered, and in that recovery process, it goes to feeding people, it goes to animal feed, it gets used for industrial processes, it gets composted and back into production. So this is just a very simple, doesn't look simple, model of how we want to see people engaging with the food system. Obviously, when we get to access, it's consumed, it gets recovered, it feeds people, and we go back into access again through food pantries. So trying to show that food doesn't have to go in the landfill. And so if you want to go to the next slide, about 14% of Hamilton County's waste is food. And so we want to make sure that that food is used for its highest and best purpose. If you go to the next slide. Because 1 in 6 adults in Hamilton County are food insecure. This is a very conservative estimate. If you want to go to the next slide, 1 in 5 children are also food insecure. And so it's really important that we think about food not just as a resource that people buy, it's also a resource that people can't afford or can't access for various reasons. So I want to make sure we're addressing the needs of our marginalized populations and making sure that everyone has access to this resource because there is so much of it. Nationally, about 20% of landfills are food waste. We're about 15%, and then about 40% of all food that's purchased is wasted. And so we know there's more than enough food to take care of these folks. So we really don't want to see it go to waste. If you go to the next slide, families in Hamilton County, this again is a very conservative estimate from a couple of years ago, are wasting about $1,800 a year on food they throw away. This is families of 4. And so this is enough for a nice little family vacation. You could go somewhere. There are things you can do with this $1,800. It's several weeks of after school daycares, I'm learning. So if you go to the next slide. And so we prioritize our activities based on the EPA food waste scale. So we really want to do the highest and best activities, which are to prevent food waste at the beginning. So that is helping our consumers learn to make shopping lists, make appropriate decisions, and what to do with their food. We also work with institutions to donate and upcycle food. So that would be working with our partners through Last Mile Food Rescue, La Soup, Food for the Soul, Free Store Food Bank, making sure that they're receiving donations, making sure they're upcycling food into other resources, getting it back out to people. We work with agencies that are doing animal feed or encouraging food producers to not harvest food that's not going to go to consumption. We work with folks to make sure that they're composting or engaging in anaerobic digestion with the beneficial use of digesting biosolids. And then the lower issues are things like anaerobic digestion or land application of food. And then we definitely don't want you to send it to landfill or down the drain if you've got another option. So it's trying to make sure that those other options exist. Next. And so I just wanted to touch on these real quick. These are slides from another presentation, but we do a lot of prevention work, not just with consumers, but with institutions to make sure that that food gets to people who need it most. And you can see we've listed several of our donation opportunities. We've listed several of our certifications and organizations we work with to make sure that other people can get this information. You can go to the next slide. And then we also have worked with a number of different compost, AD, animal feed operations. So small scale community composters, Queen City Commons, Compost Now, Go Zero, Common Orchard, Bar Farms. All of these are cornerstones to our efforts to make sure that home consumers reduce food waste, because we do know there is a certain amount of opportunity in the composting world to engage home consumers and then deliver that message to them about how they can reduce waste. So if you're composting, you're probably a likely person to learn to reduce food waste and maybe make a shopping list. People don't like to do that. So if you go to the next slide. We also have our food donation guidelines. This was something we did in partnership with some national agencies to make sure that the city and the county's health departments both have up-to-date information about what can and should be donated. And so we give these donation guidelines out at different trainings. We make sure they go out to different restaurants. The cities turn these into magnets and we've worked with them on that. So I just wanted to highlight that partnership with the city and with other national partners. If you want to go to the next slide. And so that brings us to the Wasted Food Stops With Us campaign. And so this is our consumer education campaign that we have been running now for 3 years. And I feel like this last marketing campaign we did, we really hit our stride and found a lot of great success. So we built the campaign around 4 specific practices. It's shopping with a list, serving good food, sharing the bounty, and storing food safely. And so, like I said, a lot of people don't like to make shopping lists, we learned, but people are really into the food storage conversation right now. So we're very excited to have that conversation with folks. If you want to go to the next slide. And so we did some market research a couple of years ago that gave us some new insights into the consumers in Hamilton County and understanding what motivates them and what doesn't motivate them. And so the biggest causes of stress in Hamilton County during market research were the money, the economy, and mental health. So people are really concerned about feeling lonely and isolated. They're really concerned about not having enough money to take care of their families. They're really concerned that they won't have money for future expenses. These are things that are causing stresses in their lives. And so we wanted to make sure we were cognizant and aware of the things that are stressing our communities out when we're designing a campaign to help them make better decisions. If you want to go to the next slide. So we also looked for what people value in Hamilton County. So, and I'm realizing I retyped these and all of a sudden I'm like, oh gosh, I hope I typed all these correctly. I pulled them over from a previous PowerPoint and we updated our county brand. So I wanted to make sure it was appropriate for today. So things that people value are friendship, helpfulness, working hard, enjoying life, and we had a tie with having fun and open-mindedness as values for our county residents. We really like that people say they're open-minded. That's really important to us. We also love that these are very stereotypical Midwestern values. As I talk to colleagues across the country, we're finding that our Midwestern friends have these very similar values. That changes based on where you are in the country. So it's really interesting to see who we are. Our non-comparative coastal cities, to borrow some friends from Columbus, how they describe our partnerships, that we are compared appropriately to non-coastal cities in the Midwest. So if you go to the next slide, these are things people don't really value. I didn't include them all because the list gets really interesting, but these are the high level ones I thought were the most interesting. So pretty low on the list was preserving the environment. It's not a huge value for people in our county. Romance also is not valued. I just found that.
So much for Valentine's Day.
Love is valued, not romance. Being in nature was also low, like not valued, which is really shocking and really sad because for me, that's important to me, but that's not something that people are valuing or ranking high in their list of values. Social recognition also didn't make it high on the list, which is not surprising given our comparative non-coastal city status as a Midwestern city. And then people are not seeking power. Power was the lowest item on the list. Which again is very Midwestern. If you want to go to the next slide. And so our key findings, we used the COMBI model of behavior change. That was capability, opportunity, and motivation to figure out what kind of activities we could do that would educate folks and that would engage folks in that education. So for capabilities, we learned that people consume familiar foods. They're not making shopping lists, they're not making meal plans, they're going to the store, they're on autopilot, they're buying the same things every time they go to the store like they always do. That is what people in our county are pretty much doing, and I know I'm doing that. So I think we all are like, yeah, I don't make a shopping list, or if I do, it's just like in the app of a store, and like, it's because they have the coupons, so important notes there. Opportunity, finances drive decisions. We know that, we keep hearing that. We've had a lot of experimentation with trying to put that out there, that people are wasting money, and it's not driving any behavior change, but it's an awareness factor that it is something that concerns folks. So there's still something we have to figure out around the finance conversation, but there's an opportunity there because finances drive decisions. And then infrastructure drives behavior. And so the example that our market research firm used was like, if people have an air fryer, they use an air fryer. And so if people have storage containers, they use storage containers. If people have the resources they need, they will use them in their homes. And so we have to build our campaign around the idea that people have certain resources in their homes, like stoves and refrigerators. The expectation is that they have those items. Every house is supposed to have those in Ohio, like, so we can build around the idea that those exist. Motivation, environment is a poor motivator, unfortunately. Nobody wants to hear about how methane is causing all these issues. Nobody wants to hear about how all these environmental disasters are going to cause all of these catastrophes. I wish people did. I like hearing those things. I like that. That's why I have a master's in environmental policy. I went to school to do this, but most people are just not into that. That's not how we're going to get people to make better decisions around food access. And so people also seek connection. people are seeking an opportunity to be together. People are feeling, this was still coming out of the pandemic, but we still see this, people were feeling isolated. So people want to be connected, and food is a great connector. So if you go to the next slide. So this prompted us to update a number of our resources. And one of the resources we share pretty regularly is our fruit and vegetable storage guide. So we have this online, we've got this in a paper version. This goes out to stores, it goes out to the libraries, it goes out to food pantries, it goes out to soup kitchens. And it's a resource that is just a quick reference guide of how you store your fruits and vegetables quickly at home so that they last. All of this is based on evidence or research from the USDA, FDA, Extension, or in those cases where those items are not available, from the manufacturers or producers directly. So we have all of that cited, we know where it came from, so we know it's the best practice. And we can really put we have no qualms about putting this information out there because it is research-based. And it is really good, solid information. If you go to the next slide. And we also have developed a food storage campaign that was quite successful this year. So I'm not going to go into all the details, but these were our 3 primary ads. So storing onions and potatoes separately, treating your herbs like fresh cut flowers, and then keeping apples separate from other produce. Just so you in the room have the knowledge, potatoes and onions interact poorly. So onions can ripen, can cause potatoes to develop green spots, which people are afraid of because they're releasing ethylene. Potatoes also are very moist. When onions get moist, they can start to weep. We don't like that. They go bad faster. So that's why you just don't want them together. Treating your herbs like fresh cut flowers. We remind people to change the water regularly with this advice. But basically, if you've got herbs, keep them in the fridge in a little cup of water. Change the water every couple days to make sure that it's fresh and clean, but your herbs will last longer. And then keeping apples separate from other produce. Apples release a lot of ethylene, and so they tend to ripen a lot of produce. So keeping them separate is really an ideal situation. You should keep them in a sealed container in your refrigerator. And so we have blogs that went with each of these, giving this more in-depth information. We had a lot of really great interaction. We had well over 1.2 million views on different social media sites. We've had over 50 shares for paid advertisements online, which is really unusual for people to be sharing a paid advertisement. And we just received so much feedback from people during this campaign. And our social media person, Angie, who's not here right now, really had a good time interacting with some of these folks as we put out this information. These people would respond like, that doesn't work for me, that's not my best practice. And we had a dialogue with people about like, well, that's great. Keep doing what you're doing. That's wonderful that it's working, but this is best practice and here's why, here's our blog, here's our research. And it worked really well. We had wonderful feedback. We also had 24 people sign up for our blog, which we've never had during a campaign before. We usually get 1 or 2, so we have 24 new members, and we had over 10,000 visits to the blog, which is, again, something we've not seen during a campaign. So in this particular campaign, we did hit our stride, and we have people who are interested in this particular content. If you want to go to the next slide. And so I'm just sharing some quick blog traffic information. We received 3,000 people through Facebook. These are clicks, not views on Facebook. We also we're watching our clicks, so our click-through rate for the money we spent. We want to make sure we're getting people delivered, driving them to the right place. So Facebook, Google, Reddit, direct, unknown, and other are major categories. We also tried with Pinterest, didn't have a lot of success. Reddit was the first time we've ever marketed on Reddit, so it was a little lower click-through rate, but the engagement was really high on Reddit, and we had a lot of diversity in the people who saw the ads, greater than what we see on Facebook and Instagram. So that was really exciting. And if you want to go to the next slide, this was the big get, was that the average time on our Wasted Food Stops With Us blog, which is wastedfoodstopswithus.org, I should have said that earlier, was 5 minutes and 50 seconds. And so we saw that people usually visited 2 pages. The blogs are designed to be 2-minute reads. So they were reading 2 blogs and then checking out some other stuff before they exited. What is interesting is the most popular blog people exit on is why do my onions smell like that? That's interesting. They read it, they were done. So, but we did get 24 new subscribers, so that was great. And if you want to go to the next slide, I think that's it. I also just want to end by saying our work around food waste here in Hamilton County has generated a lot of conversation nationally. So through different partnerships, we meet with different cities and different counties and different states across the country. And we're discovering all kinds of interesting ways that we've all been working to address food waste and running into the same barriers. And sometimes we are finding success in ways they can't. Some of that has to do with the regulatory environment in Ohio, but some of it also just has to do with really great people. We have someone, I just have to like call this out. We have somebody at the Cincinnati Health Department, sorry, who is just knocking down the barriers for a project to make sure that recovered food gets to people who need it most. And every time she comes up against a challenge, she is finding another solution. And we're in a really fortunate position to be able to support some of her efforts. And she comes and she's like, if I only have $300, well, let's talk about that. Because if you need $300 and it's gonna make sure that 300 people get food, and it's gonna come from La Soup or from Food for the Soul, then we're gonna explore that with you. And so it's not just that we have great, leadership and we've got great rules. We also have really great people at various positions who are really knocking down those barriers. And I'm not gonna call it any particular city, but I know Minneapolis is jealous of some of these people. So Hennepin County loves some of the work we're doing. And so it's really great to be a part of those conversations and to be able to work with such great people who bring all this together. And then to go out across the country and have these conversations and hear that like, oh, we're finding success and people are gonna replicate what we're doing. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I've learned some things. Greg and I, we've learned some things about our produce. Anybody have any, Tony, walk away very quickly. Anybody have any questions or comments for Tony?
So Tony, you said that, that kind of even though people know that financially they could be saving more if they change some of their, habits, they're just not doing that.
Oh, there's just competing priorities.
Okay,
Yeah.
so do you
Like-
have any idea for why?
Well, I mean, so I'm going through a very interesting experience the last 2 weeks where I've taken on fostering a young child and wow, there's a lot of stuff you have to do. There are a lot of issues. You get calls at 6 in the morning that daycare is not available anymore. And you're like, so don't know what we're doing about these things. And so like other things just become people's priority and food is per item rather inexpensive. Yes, we spend lots of money at the grocery store, but it's really hard to look at that apple that you bought in a bag of 12 apples and think that was money. That is one small piece of $4.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I
It's
can
not
like
like you're
that
throwing
one.
out,
Yeah, it's not like you're throwing out old clothes where you spent $50 on a pair of pants and you're like, oh, I got a hole in them. It's like one apple went bad, it cost me $4 for the bag. But that adds up over a year.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. There's too many competing priorities for people to see something so small as so valuable.
I just wanted to acknowledge the Hamilton County Hero Campaign and recognize that you're a foster parent and thank you for
Oh.
that. That's fantastic. You are a hero.
It's been a learning experience this week. I will say, my food situation at home has changed greatly. Also, my understanding of how we're teaching recycling skills is changing greatly because no, you cannot recycle your little gummy packets. It's not where that goes. It's been a lot of fun.
All right, thank you. Thanks so much, Jim. All right, our next item is the organics feasibility study update, and this is one we've been waiting for. This was part of our 5-year plan. This idea that we need to do better related to organics and what is our response to that? So Michelle, I'm gonna let you take this away.
Absolutely. So this is really a prep for the May meeting, which is going to be a bigger discussion about our organics needs and what the next steps are. I want to give you an update on kind of where we're at, what's on the website right now, and then have a discussion about what information would be helpful for you for the May meeting. So right now, if you've not gotten on, we do have a new website. Our communications people have done a beautiful job. So if you got previously on this page on our old website, it looks a little different. But on the left is where all of those links, the resources are. So we have the feasibility study report, which is about 150 pages. And then we have the executive summary, which is 7, just so you know. So both of those would go over kind of what the study, what they found, what the current landscape looks like, what's happening right now, what is the possible organics that we are going to have to deal with, And what does that look like in the large scale? What could a potential organics processor do with the finished compost? There's a whole chapter on the composting markets. So that's a really great, I encourage you to look at that, at least look at the executive summary before the May meeting. The other things that are on this page are presentations from previous stakeholder engagements that we had, a summary of that stakeholder input, envisioning sessions, and then we have down here, the last one is the webinar. So we just did a webinar last week. And that we had over 50 people attend, which was fantastic. We kept it short at 30 minutes, and we have the recording of it online. The whole point of that webinar was to give a quick blurb of the overview of it, but really as a call to action to try to get partners. Because if you remember, from the beginning of this, we've been trying to do a public-private partnership. And it's not the plan if we would just come in and build a facility, but who's out there that can possibly partner? So whether it is a municipality out there who already has a yard trimmings organics, processing facility, could they add food scraps to it? Or is it, a small business who is already composting on some level and needs some support? So that information is what is up there right now. There's a few things in the works that are just wrapping up, that should wrap up in the next few weeks. One of those is we're working with the Institute for Local Self-Reliance. This was an add-on to our contract with GT. It was an option that they originally put in the contract. The Institute for Local Self-Reliance does a lot nationally with community composting. So they want to see, small scale, medium scale composters, independent small business. So they had an add-on that we are working with them to learn some ways that we might be able to support community composting. It may not look like us buying 10 acres of land and paying for a compost facility to go on there, and then we just contract out the operation. It may look different than that. And so they are pulling together, and what you'll see before the May meeting is kind of a menu of options. And that's going to range from, if we just use our current budget right now and we, invested 500,000 or whatever it would be in helping this infrastructure, what that would look like, what we could do with that. And then if we increased fees. And so if you remember, we have a 1-2-1 fee structure, we can go as high as a 2-4-2. So if we went to a 2-4-2, which was something that was talked during the last plan, that would generate 3.6 million a year. What would, hypothetically, so what would you be able to do with that much money if you wanted to invest it all in organics? And so they're going to come up with some options and some creative ideas for us to explore. So that is coming. She told me yesterday that she expects a rough draft of that to me by the end of next week. The other thing that GT, which is the main consultant, is putting together with Coker Composting are some resources for the composters. So this isn't, we'll have it up here. You're welcome to read it, but it's mostly going to be about if you are operating composting facilities, some best practices, some things you might want to think about that they're pulling together so that we have as much resources as we can for those composters and make sure that they're processing the material well. And so I'm going to stop sharing this and pull up the list, and I apologize, it's just a Word doc, it's not anything fancy. Of items that I thought would be helpful for the May discussion. It's really small. Let me try and make it bigger, sorry.
If you go to view,
I don't know if I can.
and then you can change
Yeah.
the percentage.
That works.
You see it? All right. You get the idea. Okay, so a couple things I thought would be helpful. I'll send links obviously to that full report and the executive summary. the Institute for Local Self-Reliance report, on ways that we could, support community composting. I thought it would be helpful to have kind of an overview of what Hamilton County's RFP process is. We have to follow certain rules when we are purchasing and pulling in partners and funding certain things. So I can go over that as far as if we decided to enter into a public-private partnership, what that would look like. Previous, and this is in the study, but one way to go about that is to put out a request for information or request for proposals of, we have funds. Tell us what you got. I mean, is there possibly someone out there? And then, the other thing that I thought would be really helpful is the process that we would have to go through to change those solid waste fees outside of our solid waste planning process. If you remember, we have to get a ratification. It's similar to the plan where we have to get, communities representing 60% of the population, to vote on it. So we would go out and vote again, and I can kind of go over what that process looks like. So are there any other things that you're thinking might be helpful for me to pull together? With the idea, I would pull this together by the end of April.
So I'm assuming that the ILSR report would have suggestions on like how to get the composting from consumers to whatever the composting site might be.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
You mean as far as the actual, like, would it be
Like
like
a-
drop offs or? There is a little bit of that in the big report. And what we found is it's best to start with, if you're doing residential, it's best to start with drop offs. You get your early adopters and you get people who really care and do it right, so you're not getting a lot of contamination
Yeah.
to start.
Okay.
So in the beginning, when we were talking about this related to the plan, there was a lot of conversation with the city. And so how is the city going to be looped in to what we're doing here so that we are coordinating with any of the efforts they have related to organics?
That's a great question. I just met with Howard and Robin a couple hours ago, from the city to talk about mostly organics. So we're definitely a lot of conversations, and I know, Sue, you're meeting with a couple of staff people later this week, so
Okay.
we're at least with,
We're
we're
communicating.
communicating.
We're figuring out how
Yeah.
we can both.
Yeah, because there was a lot of conversation about collaboration
Yeah.
between the city and the county. And I'm super interested in that.
Yeah.
Don't want to duplicate efforts or waste
Right.
money in the effort here. The other thing I have a question about is this balance between, and it was brought up earlier in the comments, where you cite an organics facility related to the access for different communities to the organics facility. And so there's this balance where it's related to the number of facilities you have, where those facilities are. And so how do you, or I don't know if you have the answer to this or not, but how do you think about that balance? Because those are sometimes competing priorities.
Yes, and that was something that's been really important to us throughout this study, and I think that is one of the reasons that we have come up with several, like a decentralized approach with smaller facilities, so that one big facility isn't just in one neighborhood, and we're having to deal with that. And the technology piece was really important. So thinking about really, most of our county is either urban or suburban. And how do you process food scraps on a site and try to almost eliminate the odors? And so the two technologies that came to the top were in-vessel composting, so doing it in an enclosed environment. And if you've never seen an in-vessel composter, I suggest going out to the Dayton Food Bank. They have one, and you can stand right next to it, and
You're like, it just kind of smells like damper.
yeah, it's great. And so that is one that is great for urban environments too, because it is contained. And so you don't have to worry about, four-legged friends coming and visiting your site. So although it's more expensive, right? It's more expensive to do it that way than just having it open air. The other technology that came up was called aerated static piles. And so that is where you have kind of bays, and you have basically PVC pipe running underneath the composting, and you are constantly aerating that and then you're using a blanket basically of wood chips over top, and that helps keep the aeration moving so that you're reducing odors and keeping and composting those food scraps quickly. So I think any site that we would work on, we'd want to make sure that technology piece was in play. We'd also The other thing that was really important is public engagement. So anytime that we were talking about entering into a public-private partnership with a private company, we would want to make sure that the neighborhood that that facility is going into is engaged and knows what's coming and has input on the facility.
So related to the public engagement piece, is that opportunity is both at the May meeting that we have, but also as you look around for partners and different sites and parts of the county. And so that community engagement is really at different levels, right? Okay. Okay, any other questions, comments related to this? Okay, that sounds like it'll be like a big topic.
Yes, I think that'll be the
Yeah, I
primary
hope we
topic
can kind of
besides
clear the
learning.
agenda with other things, hopefully, and spend some time on this. And again, I want to make sure that some of the stakeholders from the very beginning of when this went into the plan to begin with, are aware that we're having this broader conversation about what the findings are, related to not only the organics facilities themselves, but the fee that we're talking about. There were a lot of folks really engaged in that, so let's make sure they all know that we're doing this. Okay. Very good. Anybody else? Okay. Thanks for the update.
If you think of anything
Yeah.
that would be helpful to add to this list, just.
Okay, thank you. All right, are there any comments from members of the policy committee before we go into the upcoming meeting? Dave?
I wanted to update, I had my team provide a response to your question, and Ohio landfill regulations require that landfill leachate is collected and sent to an authorized wastewater treatment plant, which I already shared. Per the regulations, leachate transported to a wastewater treatment plant is not automatically designated as hazardous waste. It must be tested annually to ensure the treatment system is not disrupted and effluent meets the applicable water quality standards. Should the leachate no longer meet the required standards, the landfill operator must work with the wastewater treatment plant to determine if pre-treatment or transportation to an alternate wastewater treatment plant is necessary.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments for the good of the cause? Oh, I'm sorry, I missed one. The Waste Reduction Innovation Grant. This is the good news item, so let's do that.
So we have 4 grants. The grants have been coming in since the November meeting. And I'll just quickly go through them. Cincinnati Tool Bank, which was almost for $15,000. If you're not familiar, they are a great organization that they're really a reuse organization. They're offering tools, but also tables and chairs and other things to nonprofit organizations to use in their work. And so they are expanding their operations, and we're helping support that. And then Last Mile Food Rescue, they recently invested in basically looks like a container, like a tractor trailer kind of container, but it's refrigerated at their site to rescue loads of food. And they have asked for a pallet stacker to be able to move pallets of food out of a semi into their temporary container, refrigerated container. So we're funding that. Tecan Farm is improving their compost site, which is great. This is kind of what we're looking into, so that they can process more material, but still under the 500 square feet and just do it more efficiently. And so we are funding that along with a few other things to help that operation.
So they don't have 8 acres.
No, they don't, unfortunately, but still, we'll take it small scale. And then the Urban Farming Initiative, which is kind of an interesting, they are operating on land with Alloy Development, which is part of Hamilton County. They're going to be they have a food scrap and composting and education site. And I've gone through those very quickly. We have Sharon Mooring here who probably could explain them better if you have any questions.
Any questions? I have a question that was triggered by what you just talked about. So as we move into that May meeting, can you provide us with an inventory of compost or organic sites that already exist? You just mentioned Tecan Farms. We know we've got that facility going in over in Harrison. I don't know if that's applicable to this conversation, but it could be. So let's see what the inventory is, and maybe we can take advantage of some partnerships there.
And if that could include like how big they are and how much they're taking daily and producing that.
Is the zoo doing anything like
Sort of.
that? There you go. Wow.
Nowhere near 6 to 8 acres.
No,
Yeah.
no, but,
They needed that for elephants.
yeah, although I did put us on the list, we have a mass farm in Claremont County that we don't know what's happening there yet, but master planning for that is going on now, and I would love to throw our hat in the ring for that, but.
Okay, all right, great, thank you. Okay, any other comments? Thank you for the innovation grant update, all good stuff. All right, our next meeting is this May meeting that we've been talking about, May 21st at 3 at this location. Will we be at this location? Should I do this, in the near future?
Yes, and it's supposed to be until
Yeah.
next spring that we could potentially move to the Bond Hill location.
Do you all know this, that,
Okay.
yeah, this operation is moving, as is public health, that's why I turned to you, to the Bond Hill site. I didn't know when that was actually going to take place, because we're prepping that building for these different, departments to go in, so we've got a little while to go.
Little while, yeah.
Okay,
not
very
till
good.
next year.
I don't want to mislead people by, saying we're gonna be meeting here.
So next spring, not this spring.
Right.
Okay.
Right,
I
yeah.
thought it was soon.
Well, I say you raise our priority.
So we're kind of last.
Oh, no.
Well, I'm last. I'm gonna start at the top.
At least it's better. Let me just say, it's gonna be a better, this facility is a great facility. We're consolidating a lot of county organizations in this one building. And it's free parking, and there are lots and lots of parking spots. So the people at JFS are really thrilled about this move. So anyway, all right, well, maybe we can get that done more quickly. We'll see. All right, anything else for the group? All right, I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.